The typical flow for making a score video involves 4 main steps. First, you'll need to gather your materials, which in our case is going to be a PDF of the score as well as an audio file. Next, you'll want to prepare your slides so that they display as clear and beautiful as possible by cropping the page into discrete systems and adding masks as needed. Then you'll of course want to follow the score. A score video is essentially a well-timed slideshow, and so your goal in this step is to set each slide of the score to the right time. Finally, you're going to want to share the video, either on Scorefolio and/or export the video so that you can share it on your other favorite platforms. Alright, let's get started. To import your materials, head over to Scorefolio, log in, and click New Work. Set the title of the piece and then drag and drop your PDF and audio file into the drop zone. Click Submit. As the system uploads and processes your files, feel free to fill out the form with the metadata of the composition. If you want to automatically submit your work for consideration to be uploaded to Scorefollower as a Scorefolio highlight, you can do so by checking the YouTube agreement checkbox. Once you click Save, you're done with step 1, and we can now move on to step 2 to prepare our slides. To do this, go to Crop Slides. You can think of the left panel of the cropping module as the PDF that you imported. It may look great already, but ideally we want to crop each musical system tightly so that they display as large and clear as possible in a standard 16:9 aspect ratio. So our goal is to make sure that the right-hand panel is exactly how we want our sheet music to display when viewed in the score video format. The very first thing to do is separate your preliminary notes from your sheet music slides. You do this by dragging and dropping any title pages or performance notes into the Notes tab. We'll come back to these later, but understand that because these pages don't exactly correspond to specific musical moments in the audio timeline, we're going to treat them differently than the notated music itself, which should remain in our Slides tab. In the left panel, click the first page of notated music. You'll notice that our cropping module will attempt to detect musical systems on the page, and those will be represented by orange-red rectangles. From here, you just simply click the corresponding number key on your keyboard, which will automatically move the selection rectangle to the first system detected, and then you'll hit C or the Enter key to crop. Doing this will generate a cropped slide that will be added to the right-hand panel under the respective fold page in order of when you crop them. You'll also notice that my selection window has already moved onto the next system for me, so all I have to do to crop the next system is click C. Moving on to the next page, I'll let it detect the systems, then click 1, then C, and I'm done. If your score is mostly standard and not too dense like mine is, then you may be able to crop an entire score in a matter of seconds. Of course, not all scores are this easy. Some scores will be densely formatted, poorly scanned, or they'll have non-standard markings that will throw off the detection algorithm. Do not panic. In the worst case scenario, you can turn off the system detection algorithm and crop manually. Often it will detect the system, but you'll just need to tweak 1 or 2 of the crop box handles slightly. And of course, if there are ever undesired symbols or system dividers leaking into your crop box, you can edit them out by clicking the mask icon, add mask, adjust it so that it covers the unwanted symbol, and hit save. Now that all of our slides are cropped, we're almost ready to follow the score, but before we do, notice that we have a mix of full pages and cropped slides in our right-hand panel. We want to hide all of the full pages because they're redundant, and therefore we don't want them showing up in the video editor. We can very quickly move all of them to the hidden tab by clicking the Hide All Uncropped Pages button. We're now ready to follow the score. Click the video editor. What we want to do now is place our slides at the appropriate points in time along our timeline. There are several ways to do this, but one of the most important concepts to understand is that when you click Enter or Drop Slide, it will place whatever slide is highlighted in the right panel into the timeline where the playhead cursor is currently at. So right now, our first slide is selected and the playhead is at the beginning. If I click Drop Slide, it will place my first slide at the 0 mark in my timeline, which is exactly what I want to do. Notice that when I did that, my slide dropped to the bottom with a timestamp of 0 minutes and 0 seconds, and it automatically selected my next slide. With this queuing flow, we can simply follow the score in real time by pressing the play button to hear the music and hitting enter when it's time to turn the page. If the piece is easy to follow, you can even increase the playback speed up to 2x to follow the score as fast as possible, or vice versa, of course, if it's too fast. Sometimes the waveform makes it obvious to determine where a page turn needs to take place, and in these scenarios you can drag and drop the slide into the timeline. If you place the slide inaccurately, there are many ways to remedy the mistake. Using the slide handles in the timeline, you can drag it to the correct position, but for more fine-tuned correcting, you can click the nudge buttons, which shift the slide a third of a second whichever direction is needed. or you can even manually type in the desired timestamp. Just make sure that you have the correct slide selected while you do this. Remember that the app automatically queues the next slide for rapid real-time slide placement, and that the slide you just positioned will sync to the bottom of the list. So when you make a mistake, you'll typically find your problematic slide at the bottom of the list, which you can quickly get to by selecting it directly in the timeline. In fact, this is useful for performing additional edits to the slide. Say you noticed a typo in the score. We made it possible to upload a replacement image without having to completely redo the video. You can crop or add a mask if this was not done successfully in the slide preparation step, and you can also duplicate your slides if there is repetition that requires the same slide to be viewed multiple times in the timeline. Sometimes you just really mess up a slide, and in that case you can always remove the most recent slide and try again. Once you've fixed and placed the remaining slides, you're done and you're ready to share your work. You can choose to share your work directly on Scorefolio by setting the visibility to public. Your score video will show up in the Discover page as well as on your own profile, and you can also embed it on an external site. When viewers visit the work page, they'll be able to leaf through the title page and performance notes by clicking the Notes button below your video. In addition to sharing your work on Scorefolio, you can also render and download the video to share on your favorite video hosting platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. To do this, click the Download button. You'll be presented with a handful of settings for how you want your video to display. If you have performance notes like I did, you'll likely want to check that box so that they display at the end of the video. You may also want to preview what your video would look like in dark mode or using portrait mobile dimensions. You can even select the time range of your piece to export it as an excerpt, which is great for social media teasers. For now, I'm going to go with the most standard YouTube setting and click Render. The video will be ready for you in a matter of seconds. Even 2-hour videos will complete in under 50 seconds, an unprecedented benchmark thanks to some really clever engineering by our lead developer. Finally, click Download to save it to your computer. I hope this tutorial helps. Let's follow all the scores.